sectors. I think it's individual stocks within sectors which have done well. I mean, I'll give you an example of pharmaceuticals, where on one hand you've seen stocks like Cipla and Sun do so well, and on the other hand you look at names like Lupin and Natco and Ipca, they have languished. So, I mean, in autos it's the same thing. I mean, I spoke about M&M. TVS Motors has been a standout performer, but you look at some of the other names like Bajaj Auto or even Tata Motors, they've not done well at all. So, you know, it's like a few stocks in some sectors have done well, and it's not been a kind of a top-down sectoral kind of a year in that sense. So I would say from a winning basket, a couple of those groups like Adani and M&M, some of these underdogs, a lot of the PSUs which were forgotten, and of course, a lot of intra-sector calls in individual stocks.
Good points there, Udayan. In fact, the point about the losers and how the hated pack of PSU stocks seems to have come back into favor. Who would have imagined Hindustan Aeronautics, for example? But taking that point forward, so what would you advise to those who actually believe that the markets are not a video game and are serious investors? What would you tell them in terms of how they should balance, rebalance, churn their portfolio, considering some of the losers that they may have in their portfolio?
You know, Siddharth, the two I think which are hurting the most in portfolios, people's portfolios now, I would say IT. Abha was talking about it, but it's a year when the IT index is down 20%. And at the start of the year, I would imagine, I mean, I also believe that IT will actually do well, but then the war started and everything in the Western world became so cloudy that despite the move in the rupee, IT as a sector has done very poorly. I mean, Infosys and TCS are still fine. They're down 10% on the year. But you look at a Wipro down 40%, and that's been one of the howlers of the year. And you look at the entire mid-cap IT pack, which a lot of domestic investors own, that has been a serious letdown. So I think that's a big question mark on whether it's time to buy those stocks again, or these stocks will suffer more under the global gloom before they bottom out. And the other sector where there was a lot of hope at the start of the year, Siddharth, was real estate. You know, everybody was talking about a new real estate cycle in India after many years. So realty as a sector was expected to perform. But if you look at the BSE Realty Index, or you look at individual stocks, the stars like Godrej Properties, Indiabulls Realty, etc., they're all down 30-40% on the year. So that story has not played out. So I would say IT and real estate have been two of the biggest disappointments of the year, and people need to do a lot of soul searching vectors. I mean, that aside, there have been some mini themes which have worked out. I mean, you look at divestment as a theme. You know, BPCL has been one of the biggest dogs of the year. That's because the government just could not get it despite promises. And I think one of the biggest source of the year gone by has been the debacle of the LIC IPO, because I mean, stock's down more than 30% from its debut price. So these are some of the things that will stand out on what has been otherwise a very resilient year for the markets. And speaking of LIC, insurance as a sector has done very poorly. Even the hallowed HDFC Life Insurance has done so poorly this year. So that's another sector. You know, you look at the Dr. Lal Path Labs and Metropolis Healthcare, those have been absolute howlers of 30-40% years. So I think there have been lots of pockets which have not done very well, where one needs to go and sift and see if they've reached attractive valuations. And of course, I'm not mentioning the Zomatos of the world, because all three of us, what kind of a year they have had.
Well, that's correct. And as we slip into a short break, we'll come back with more on 2079, the new SAMVAT. Stay with us.
Great time to diversify your portfolios and take exposure to crypto as an industry. Diwali is always known for Mahurat Trading, and equities and gold are normally what you associate it with. So why not take exposure to crypto at this time of the year? Coin DCX always focuses on product innovation and learning. So a fantastic time to start off learning more about the industry and taking exposures in a sustainable manner for the long term. Have a great Diwali. Wish everyone a happy, safe, and prosperous Diwali.
The men and women who built Indian industry, and the young guns who are shaping tomorrow's India. From storied careers to unicorn dreams.
The equity market is a dynamic space that needs sharper insights and perfect timing.
What stock, what fund, what to pick and what to sell.
How do you make money on the markets? And what are the superior strategies for a winning portfolio?
Your questions answered by 30 years undisputed leadership.
Only with Business Today Television.
For over 140 years, we have partnered India's growth story, a journey that was synonymous with noise and cacophony, is today silent, yet more dynamic. Technology now runs one of the fastest exchanges in the world, BSE. Experience the new.
Welcome back. You're celebrating SAMVAT 2079 with us here at Business Today Television. Udayan Mukherjee also with us live from London. Udayan, while we talk about the year gone by, it really was a year where we saw retail investors continue to flock towards the market. And while we've talked about Indian equities remaining resilient, it was also a year where we continued to see a lot of interest coming in from an entirely new generation of investors looking to tap into this as an asset class. Savings were going towards equity markets. All other asset classes seem to be losing favor, so to speak. Do you feel this will continue to be the trend going forward, or what really stacks up the case for Indian equities versus other asset classes at this point?
No, you're right, Abha. I think it's the year where we look back and it was the year of coming of age of the Indian investor, because their mutual funds and Indian equities started a couple of years ago. But this is the year where they were tested. At many points, markets were down 10-15%, but they did not blink. Points, they slowed down a little bit, but then came right back into the market.
But then I'm just going to
absorbed 3.7 lakh crores. Sorry.
No, I was just actually going to just refer to the fact that the Mahurat session has also opened. So we continue our conversation. We're just alluding to the ticks, and at the BSE, some celebrity action. Ajay Devgan there.
and you can see this Sensex up, the Nifty up. Very clearly the standard Mahurat session starting, and we have all people decked up. This is after a break, Abha. COVID has meant that none of these things have happened for the last couple of years, but you can see the whole BSE auditorium full of people, not a mask in sight, thankfully, but the Mahurat session clearly seemed to be up, and we have the Sensex rates that are coming in up 663 points, the Nifty up almost 187, Abha.
It's looking good, and this is actually pretty strong for a Mahurat trading session. Nifty up 1%, 17,766 as you can see on your screen. We've got the Sensex also looking strong, and across the board the broader indices also, the Nifty Bank, I'm just taking a look at that. That's also in the green and up about 1.3%. That's a pretty strong opening for a Mahurat trading session, Udayan.
It is, and I'm not surprised because US market closing on Friday was very, very strong too. So we are in part reacting to that. I think because of the UK election results which are expected, there is some kind of sanity and calm in the European markets as well. But I think on Friday there was a lot of talk that the US market investors feel that for some data has come about that the pace of rate increases by the Fed will probably not be as much going forward. So we had a powerful 2% move out there, and I think part of this is the festive cheer, and part of it of course is reacting to the US markets. But as you've seen with many Mahurat sessions, I'm not expecting this will be the same, but they sometimes start strong and then there is a bit of profit taking towards the end and they sort of end flattish. But today the global tidings are quite smart, so maybe we'll have a good session after all. And we are not, we're 17,700 on the Nifty, so another 300-400 points will be knocking on the doors of the recent high, not the all-time high of 18,600, but the recent high which was made a few weeks back before the correction started of around 18,100, 200. So I think that is the logical destination of this move over the next few sessions. With today's start, I would imagine that from last Diwali, the last SAMVAT session, where the market probably closed at something like 17,900, and today we are just 200 points short. So I don't even think we can call it a down year any longer. We probably just say it's flat. It's just 1% change between the two SAMVAT trading sessions.
That's just it. Markets continue to surprise, the kind of momentum that we have seen and continue to see. 5.9 on the Sensex, we've got 17,761 on the Nifty, and it's across the board now that we're seeing that spate of green. As Siddharth just said, a packed house when we're looking at the exchange and the opening bell as everyone is out in full form this fair season. But then broader markets, this time around, do you feel there's going to be in to pick at? Because do you feel they'll be resilient in the face of any kind of ensuing volatility given the global backdrop?
It's tough to say, Abha. I mean, one can easily get carried away on a festive day and make some very good projections, and that would be a folly, because a lot of the challenges that we actually battled against and swam against this year continue to remain in place. Our valuations are quite lofty. I think earnings will hold the key. By this time next year when we are talking, I think we'll have a much better sense of whether earnings held up against the kind of a global slowdown. And I think the key risk to the market is that over the next couple of quarters, we find out that there are more earnings disappointments. And while the market can kind of scoff off the global doom and gloom and move to its own beat, if closer at home there are earnings disappointments, then I think this kind of a 20p multiple for the market will be very difficult to hold up. And I think that is a clear and present risk that we have to keep in mind. Your question is well taken on the broader market, because last time in 2018, when the market had become fairly narrow, you remember the time when nothing but an HDFC Bank or an Asian Paints would make money, everything else remained down or flat. I think we are not in that kind of a market over the last 1 year. Lots of mid caps and small caps have done well, though the small cap index is down quite a bit for the year. And I think earnings will hold the answer to whether we are in a new capex cycle, and we have started a new credit cycle from the banking space as well, and therefore mid caps and small caps will not fare that poorly. I think that is the most important question for most retail investors who don't buy only the Reliance and the Kotak banks of the world. They buy lots of stocks outside it, and I think I'm praying and hoping that it turns out to be the case. But it's not going to be an easy year to predict. That I'm quite sure about. There will be lots of twists and turns and a lot of surprises. So don't bet the house on a secular movement in the market. I think there is still a lot of volatility in store this year.
Udayan, what would be the triggers of volatility according to you? I just want to give you two contrasting pieces of data, which I'm sure you've seen while you were in London as well. One is the global inflation data, and you see country upon country, the OECD countries, kind of price pressures they are under, and that's obviously going to impact downstream with the interest rate hikes that are coming in. On the other hand, in the domestic market, data by the Trade Association, the Traders Association in India says that 2 days of Dhanteras, Abha and Udayan, there was business according to them, and sometimes their estimates are off the mark. 45,000 crore. We can always quibble about the numbers, but it's clear, and I've been out into the bazaars, there's chock-a-block, all manner of consumable items have been flying off the shelf. Everyone's been painting their homes, going out and buying vehicles. So it's like 2 years of pent-up demand also in travel. Can this story continue and withstand the global pressures? And a long question, but pre-2008, policymakers in Delhi used to tell me India has decoupled. Will they have the guts to say that again now as we head into 2023, Udayan?
No, those are dangerous words, and I'm always very, very cautious about using them very freely, because usually when people start talking about decoupling and stuff, that is when the markets give you such a whack that you don't utter it for a few years. So, I mean, this has happened in the past too many times for us to fall into that same trap again. Some things are different this time. I mean, it's not decoupling, but the fact that India, as I keep saying, I mean, it's probably the cleanest dirty shirt. You know, all shirts are dirty right now. India is probably the cleanest of the dirty shirts. And that's the right way to look at it. You know, maybe we have a demand story which is more powerful. And I think the other metric, I mean, you were talking about global inflation, Siddharth. The other thing is that if you look at the last 1 year, Diwali to Diwali, in the US, in Germany, in the UK, interest rates or the bond yields have gone up more than 250 basis points. That's a hell of a lot for a developed economy. In India, where we call ourselves developing, you know, our bond yields have only gone up about 120 basis points. So bond yields in India, curiously, have gone up by only half of what they have gone up in more developed and advanced economies. So that might belie a conviction that India's inflation problem is not as bad as the global inflation problem, and sooner or later it will start coming down. Again, time will tell whether we are correct in that hypothesis, but that seems to be what the street has priced in. On demand, I think everybody on the street agrees that these couple of months will be great because, as you said, there's a lot of pent-up demand. It's what happens next quarter onwards. I think the worry is once you get into November, December, January, February, will the demand hold up? Or once this pent-up demand is exhausted, we start to see some of the sluggishness come back because of higher inflation, higher interest rates, and the global issues. So we need to be monitoring the data very, very closely. India's case is not one of doom and gloom, but we cannot divorce ourselves completely from the environment that we are trading in.
So then one question which is everyone's favorite at this time of year is always, what's the expectation going forward into the new year in terms of levels to watch out for or the kind of positive returns one can anticipate? Are you in line with the thinking that 20-25% is possible, or is that more specific stocks, if you're lucky, keep a reasonable expectation of maybe 12 to 15%? And you know, what are your expectations when it comes to the benchmarks?
My expectation is that the market will surprise us, Abha. I don't know which way, because right now, everybody's expectation is that the next 3 to 4 months will be very volatile. When they say volatile, they probably mean that the market will correct. That's the sort of euphemism people use for a downbeat prediction on the market. They say the next 3-4 months will be volatile, and then things will start improving. So basically, that means that people are waiting on sitting on cash. They're waiting for the markets to correct because of the global doom, which is when they will invest the money and deploy the cash. And then the markets will go up and reward. Markets usually have a habit of surprising. If that is the consensus, the markets might do the opposite. The markets might actually rally first and defy all expectations of a correction in the near term. And just when you begin to feel that behind you and we are off to the races, then the markets sort of earnings slowdown and a global inflation problem that is sometime next year, see a correction then. That would be more painful in my eyes, because then hopes would have dwindled and then the correction would have knocked you back. But I think these kind of surprises be amply expected over the course of the next few months, because we are in very, very uncertain. I mean, how can you stick your neck out and talk about a 25% return when there is raging in the world? And you know, it takes a switch of a button from a mad politician, change all your predictions of 20% return over the next year. So, you know, very unprecedented kind of terrain that we are living in, and therefore to make is going to be very difficult. As I said, the only thing to do is to change your time, not look for the next 1 year, but say what will happen in Diwali 3 years out, 5, and then it becomes probably a slightly better chance of success in predicting what lies ahead. That's exactly what the Indian investor that you spoke about seems to be doing. They're saying, okay, we take your notes of caution on board, but we are here for the term, and we will take the volatility in our stride and keep getting invested in the market. So my Diwali thing is hats off to the maturity of the Indian investor, because I have not seen in the last 20 years this level of maturity from the Indian investor. And I hope their maturity pays off without them being brutally hurt over the course of the next 12 or 15 months because of some global problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Udayan, and thank you very much for those views. We'll slip into a short break. On the other side, we'll see Amisha Vora, Joint MD of Prabhudas Leeladhar, also with us. Stay with us, back in just a few moments from now.
Great time to diversify your portfolios and take exposure to crypto as an industry. Diwali is always known for Mahurat Trading, and equities and gold are normally what you associate it with. So why not take exposure to crypto at this time of the year? Coin BCX always focuses on product innovation and learning. So a fantastic time to start off learning more about the industry and taking exposures in a sustainable manner for the long term. Have a great Diwali. Wish everyone a happy, safe and prosperous Diwali.
This Diwali, fire up your Muhurat Trading.
This Diwali, celebrate the victory of good investment.
Welcome Devi Mahalakshmi into your homes this Diwali.
Sweeten your portfolio this Diwali with Business Today TV.
For over 140 years, we have partnered India's growth story. A journey from a nation of hardworking farmers and traders to being the global benchmark in industrial development. BSE, experience the new.
Welcome back. You're with us here on BTTV, and joining us now, Amisha Vora. Always a pleasure having you with us, Amisha, and on this festive occasion. Must get your thoughts as we come into the new year with a bang. We're seeing a fantastic opening this Mahurat session, and you're looking lovely. I can see it's your, already all ready for the puja. Tell us, Amisha, what are you hoping to see from the markets this year? Okay, Amisha, can you hear me?
There is so much noise playing.
Okay, give us a minute. Give us a minute. Let me fix that line. Let me fix that line, and let's just do that offline. We'll just fix Amisha's audio. But in the meanwhile, let's actually take you through a fascinating journey of really what's happened from the last Samvat to this Samvat. It's been a series of roller coasters, of twists and turns, and the sectors that kick-started the year ended up being the losers at the end of the year. And as Udayan was saying, some of the dark horses actually ended up emerging as the key winners. Let's listen in to really what's happened over the past 1 year.
It's been a roller coaster ride no investor would have expected a year ago. During the Mahurat Trading on 4th of November 2021, those expecting a reprieve and stability on the Dalal Street after the ravages of COVID found themselves staring at a nightmare. Triple-barrel shotgun. It was one crisis precipitated after another. 10 days after Valentine's Day, Russia belatedly showed its love for annexing Ukraine. The rolling thunder of tanks triggered a spike in oil prices and a crisis in food grain supplies, given that Ukraine and Russia are two of the biggest exporters of wheat and oilseeds. The unavailability of Russian crude and gas, particularly in the West, sent energy prices skyrocketing. Along with food prices, this had the Western economies gasping with inflation hitting 40-year highs. Central banks across the world rush to rein in this price rise by the only monetary tool at their disposal: interest rates. Rates have hit a 14-year high in the US and 42-month highs in India. This resulted in foreign investors withdrawing around 2 trillion rupees in the so-called hot money from India, preferring the safer havens of mainland US. The impact was softened in part by the 3 trillion rupees domestic investors poured in equities. This, however, meant unprecedented volatility in the markets. The Nifty, which started its SAMVAT 2078 journey from 17,1907, scaled a high of 18,308 on the 17th of January. The Ukraine war cratered it to 15,863 before a strong India story helped it scale the 18,000 mark again in early April. The US Fed's aggressive interest rate stance pushed the index to a low of 15,254. There has been some recovery of late, with the Nifty crossing the 17,000 mark. Overall, the year has been the worst for markets in the past 7 Vikrami Samvats. While the Nifty is down 341 points, the Sensex has lost 1.2% of its value. Among the BSE sectoral indices,
UK gets a new Prime Minister, viewers. Big breaking news coming in this Diwali, and a man of Indian origin, nonetheless, becomes the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Rishi Sunak, right there, winning this away. And after Liz Truss, we have Rishi Sunak being announced as the new Prime Minister. We'll get you more details from my colleagues who are joining in from London in just about a bit. The other contender in the fray clearly has dropped out of this race. We're getting more details trickling in as we speak on the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Rishi Sunak, the new Prime Minister. And you have Penny Mordaunt, who's dropped out of the race. And as you already know, Liz Truss, no longer the Prime Minister. And the contest was really between Sunak and Mordaunt. And Penny Mordaunt has dropped out of the leadership race. And that really means, and she's really thrown in the towel right there. And hence you've got Rishi Sunak. We'll get you the numbers in terms of what are the numbers looking like right now. If I could just tell our producers to get us our reporter to get us up to speed with the very latest as far as this is concerned, with our reporters who will be joining us. Do we have Lavina with us? Okay, Rishi Sunak becomes UK's Prime Minister after Penny Mordaunt has dropped out of the Tory leadership race. We'll get you the reaction in terms of what she says as far as the campaign is concerned. Latest news coming in. We're getting a little more about Rishi Sunak. We'll get you more as far as Rishi Sunak is concerned. There is more information coming in at this point of time. Rishi Sunak, the new UK Prime Minister after Penny Mordaunt dropping out of the Tory leadership race. She has also said she is proud of the campaign she ran, but Sunak has her full support. The former Chancellor gained the support of well over half of Tory MPs, with Mordaunt struggling to reach the 100 MP threshold. He has become The first British Asian Prime Minister, viewers. The first British Asian Prime Minister having Indian origin. So that is the latest. It's a big moment for India as well because he is of Indian origin. We're getting you those details. Penny Mordaunt dropping out of the UK Prime Minister's race. I'd request the producers to fix my audio as well. So now, the new Prime Minister's Mordaunt drops out of the leadership race. Conservative MPs rallied behind Rishi Sunak. Penny Mordaunt says Rishi has my full support as the Prime Minister. He's become UK's first Prime Minister, which is of Indian origin, also of largely of Asian origin as well. Britain has never had an Asian Prime Minister. This is the first as far as India is concerned, the first as far as Asia is concerned to have a British Prime Minister who's of Asian and particularly Indian origin. Our producers are just sending us more details at the moment. We've got a statement that is coming from Penny. I've just received this right now. Let me just read this out for our viewers while you also fix my audio right there, requesting you once again. Penny's statement says, our party is our membership. Whether we are elected representatives, activists, fundraisers or supporters, we all have a stake in who our leader is. These are unprecedented times. Despite the compressed timetable for the leadership contest, it is clear that colleagues feel we need certainty today. They have taken this decision in good faith for the good of the country. Members should know that this proposition has been fairly and thoroughly tested by the agreed 1922 process. That is the latest coming in. I'm going to read out the rest of statement put out by Penny, but in the meanwhile, let's go to Jonathan Gilbert, who's joining us from London. So Jonathan, all eyes now on you because you're going to tell us, viewers, what happened exactly. You were doing the countdown the last time we spoke as well. You said, you know, this is nail-biting, the countdown. We're here now. The results are out. UK's first Asian origin Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Over to you, Gilbert. Jonathan, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi, Jonathan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. So, Jonathan, I'm just going to do this again. We just lost you there, your audio. We were talking earlier about on the broadcast as well as to how, the countdown has truly begun. And, you called this. You really called this, saying that he's way ahead of the game. But, did we not expect Penny throwing in the towel so soon?
It's very difficult to say. I mean, look, I think, politicians, they talk a good game, don't they? It still remains to be seen if Boris Johnson genuinely got the 100 votes that he claimed. I think probably what Penny Mordaunt did was take it up to the wire. I think when we learn about the true history of this contest, we may discover that she fell slightly short and therefore had to throw in the towel at 2 p.m. And that was the ticking clock. That was the deadline. My suspicion and my instinct is that that's what happened. She probably got maybe 80, 90 supporters, but it wasn't enough to get her over the line. So she already had a well expressed, a well coded resignation statement to go, and she hit send at 1:59. And that's the way it went. But the reality is, Rishi Sunak is now our de facto prime minister. And that is absolutely extraordinary. I'm still trying to digest this. I'm still really trying to take this on board for a number of reasons. But
when you say that, you're still trying to digest this for a number of reasons, I'm sure that the viewers are also trying to digest this for a number of reasons. If you could elaborate those reasons for our viewers as well. Also because, you had that Boris Johnson tenure, then you had Liz Truss, did not work out, too much financial uncertainty. And then obviously the darling of the stock markets happened to be Rishi Sunak as well. And you had Penny in the fray as well, who decided to drop out. So there's just been too much back and forth as far as leadership is concerned. There was a sure leadership vacuum as far as United Kingdom is concerned. Do you think that now with Rishi Sunak, all of that is sorted going forward?
No, I mean, so I'll answer that question in two parts.
Please go ahead.
I'll answer the second part first. I think the governmental chaos is probably over now because the Tory party was essentially in a mode of self-destruction. And, we now have a very sober-minded, very intelligent, very economically literate candidate in charge. Now, he'll probably be in charge for the next couple of years, barring any escapades. But he still faces a massive mountain to climb in terms of persuading the electorate that the Conservative Party needs another term in office. Now, the second part, and I really hesitate to say this because it brings me absolutely no credit to do so. But I grew up, I'm in my 50s now, and I grew up in a Britain which was racially divided, and a lot of people of Indian origin were subject to a lot of racial abuse. And, now we are in a position where the most conservative and the most right-wing party of office in the country has elected a person of Indian origin as their leader. And I think that is an absolutely extraordinary moment and an incredible Rubicon that has been crossed here. And I think it's amazing. It's incredible. I thoroughly applaud it. And it's an amazing moment for this country. And very few people are willing to talk about this because it's such a, it's really such a politically fraught topic of conversation, but it's true. We have an Asian origin prime minister, and this has never happened before. And good on him.
Good on him. Absolutely good on him. Now, just to get a little bit of perspective into what lies ahead, what are the challenges that lie ahead, Gilbert, as far as Rishi Sunak is concerned, because he's obviously entering at a point of time where there is a lot of financial uncertainty, and that's why Liz Truss, ended up throwing her hat in the ring.
Absolutely. Well, there are huge economic challenges. Look, they come from various directions. I think a lot of this, this unacknowledged financial uncertainty and economic chaos has unfortunately come from Ukraine and Vladimir Putin's attempts to switch the lights off in Europe, which he's halfway towards doing. So Sunak is a very clever and very, very competent politician and economist. His first step, obviously, will be to try and bring down the level of inflation. He's going to do this using various mechanisms. He can possibly raise interest rates, although that's deeply unpopular. He can reduce public spending. That's deeply unpopular as well. But there's not much else, frankly, in his tool shed at the moment. When he's done that, he'll try and get a grip on the economy, and by that stage, it'll be time for a general election. So, look, he has one of the most frightening and painful inboxes for any incoming PM in modern history. But if anyone knows how to do that, it's him.
I also want to understand, Jonathan, from you, that Penny Mordaunt pulled out of the contest. Why? Why is it that she decided to do that? Because, then you had Rishi Sunak de facto as the Prime Minister. The moment she did that, if you could explain where it really come from, where did that decision come from?
Okay, again, we'll have to wait and see once we've dug this out for sure. But obviously I have two theories. Number one is that she didn't get over the line, quite simply. She needed 100 MPs behind her. There were all sorts of briefings going on. She had 70, she had 80, she had 90. This may have just been malicious briefing. The reality of the matter is she may just not have got 100 MPs behind her, at which point she had to, tender a tearful resignation letter. The other theory is quite conceivably, even had she received 100, she may have said to herself, well, look, this is a mandate, but it's not a real mandate, is it? I could go to this tiny sliver of the population, the Tory party membership, and they might vote me in because they voted against Rishi last time, but it would be a Pyrrhic victory, it would be a false victory. And again, they may have made her PM and she might have crashed and burned just like Liz Truss. So it's somewhere between those two concepts, I imagine. Either way, I think she probably did the right thing.
What is the sentiment that you're picking up from the people in Britain to have Rishi Sunak as their Prime Minister? Because obviously, like we were discussing as well, he's a de facto Prime Minister nonetheless.
Well, he essentially is now Prime Minister, failing a overnight nuclear strike. Liz Truss will tender her resignation to the King Charles III, as he is now known. And then Penny Mordaunt will go to Buckingham Palace tomorrow and ask the King to, sorry, I beg your pardon, Rishi Sunak will go to Buckingham Palace tomorrow and ask the King to form a government. And that is that. So, the technicalities are essentially just mechanical now. He is now our Prime Minister to all intents and purposes.
Right, absolutely. So obviously what's going to happen tomorrow is that he's going to be going and meeting the King tomorrow, King Charles tomorrow. Is that what you're saying is going to happen? And what is the process really like?
Yeah, it's really, it's formal and traditional and a little bit tedious, although obviously we've seen it more often in the last year than probably in the previous 10 or 20 years. Liz Truss goes to see the King because she's still, believe it or not, the acting Prime Minister, and she formally tenders her resignation. And then Rishi Sunak goes to see the King, and because he has the backing of his party, which, let's not forget, despite Boris Johnson's demise, still commands a healthy parliamentary majority of, between 70 and 80 members of parliament, depending on who is throwing a tantrum at any given stage. And he says to the King, I'm going to form a parliament. And the King says, are you capable of forming a parliament? And he says, yes. And at that point, he becomes Prime Minister. And that's the way it works. It's all a little bit, Game of Thrones, isn't it? But that's what we like to do in this country.
And September's loser becoming October's winner now. Isn't that it, Jonathan? Who would have imagined?
No, who would have imagined it? No one, certainly. And I've been covering UK politics for, well over 25 years now. And I saw off, Tony Blair, I saw off Gordon Brown, and I saw off John Major, actually. And, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite this febrile and quite this complex and quite this comical in some ways in my entire lifetime of covering politics, and probably never will again. I think that this is part of the reason why Rishi Sunak has been offered the opportunity to take charge. It's because people are just absolutely sick of the pantomime and the politics of it all. They need a sensible grown-up in the room who knows how to run a country. And I suspect a lot of people today are going to be breathing a huge sigh of relief.
I'm actually looking at some numbers as well as far as finances are concerned, and the pound has just risen slightly after Mordaunt has pulled out. So is this basically an example of really what's to come in future?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, look, I can't predict the financial markets, and no one can. If they could, they'd be billionaires. But there's no question about it whatsoever that the markets, are the ultimate arbiter, aren't they, of political fortunes. And they obviously like Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak is a grown-up. He is enormously educated, expensively educated, a very sober-minded man, both, physically and mentally. He used to run a hedge fund. He worked for Goldman Sachs. He's exceptionally wealthy. I think he's just one of those people who you instinctively trust with your money. And that's what we're going to do. We're trusting him with the treasure of the entire kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So, let's hope he's good to his word.
I also want to reiterate one point, Jonathan, that it was Penny Mordaunt who was pressed to exit the UK Prime Minister's race because of the kind of support that Rishi really ended up getting. If you could just shed some light on that front as well.
Sorry, I do beg your pardon. She was pressed to do what?
She was pressed to exit the UK Prime Minister's race, I'm saying, because of the kind of support that Rishi was enjoying.
Yeah, again, we don't know. I mean, look, it's 10 minutes since this happened. So I think the reality of this is going to take a little bit of time to unpick. She may not have been pressed to exit. She may simply have failed to achieve the 100 MP ballot which she needed in order to get into the next stage, the next round of voting, if you like. No, that's the irony of it, is that had she got the 100, she may well have done. Had she got the 100, she may well have won the next stage because of this weird system whereby Tory party members, this very tiny sliver of the electorate, tended to vote against Rishi Sunak. In the last leadership election, as we saw, they preferred Liz Truss, clearly an unsuitable candidate in retrospect, over him. So they may well have gone for her again. But so I think it remains to be seen. If she did get the numbers, then the reason she pulled out is quite simply for the case of party unity. You could be voted in by Tory party members, but still be resented and disparaged by MPs, and ultimately go to a catastrophically poor election result in 2 years. She may well have then just pulled out for the sake of the party and the sake of the country.
And I have to say that to you, Jonathan, that it is Diwali here in India. It is the festival of light and happiness. And I'm pretty sure every Indian watching this broadcast today is just feeling that pride and happiness to even know the fact that the UK gets a Prime Minister, Britain gets a Prime Minister, and in a first of an Indian origin.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, this is a topic that is really rarely discussed because racial politics are so febrile and so poisonous, really. So all I can say is that this is an extraordinary moment. I think it will take a little while for this to sink in. But yes, no, absolutely. And I suppose the greatest compliment I could pay Rishi Sunak, and indeed this country now, is that it's no longer an issue. It's no longer an issue. And before, we get too carried away, we also had, people of Afro-Caribbean origin in the last cabinet. We had people of Pakistani origin in the last cabinet. So, this has become a multicultural society, and more importantly, a multicultural society that doesn't make a big deal about it. So, good on him, and good on all of them.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Jonathan, continue to be with us. I've got some breaking news that is just coming in. The news that is just trickling right now, and I'm just going to read it out to our viewers, is that the King is going to be travelling from Sandringham to London this afternoon, which means he's going to be in Buckingham Palace this evening. Should Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak decide to go see him tonight, one to resign and one to be invited to form His Majesty's government. So, Jonathan, my question to you is this all likely to happen tonight, your time?
It's perfectly possible. I wasn't aware the King was in Sandringham, but he likes to move around. He has a lot of big, expensive country houses, and also notoriously, the royal family don't actually like Buckingham Palace. Weirdly, it's big and drafty, but yes, it's perfectly possible that this will all happen tonight. It sounds terribly ceremonial, but I think the reality of the matter is that it's perfunctory. Liz Truss walks in, says, I resign. King Charles says, thank you very much. Penny Mordaunt's waiting outside. She walks in, says, I'm now going to form a government. The king says, thank you very much.
Yes.
And then off he pops back to Sandri.
Right, absolutely. You know, Jonathan, that was very interesting. Just stay on with us. I'm compelled to take a very short commercial break, but this is a very interesting story and development that we're tracking right now. I promise you, viewers, we're coming back in just moments from now with more on the story. Take a short commercial break.
You are watching India Today.
Taiwan excellence empowers innovation in everyone's life. We keep moving forward to a wonderful tomorrow, dreaming amazing dreams and living fuller lives. Everywhere, every moment, every day. Taiwan excellence, everyday excellence.
This Diwali, fire up your Muhurat Trading.
This Diwali, celebrate the victory of good investment.
Welcome Devi Mahalakshmi into your homes this Diwali.
Sweeten your portfolio this Diwali with Business Today TV.
lakh jobs before 2023. Modi Sarkar's pre-Diwali bonanza. Rozgar Mela, India's biggest recruitment drive, has brought smiles on the faces of millions who have long waited for employment. 10 lakh jobs in 38 ministries and central departments will be provided in the next 14 months. 50 union ministers were assigned the task to hand over job letters personally to 20,000 people at different locations across the country. A total of 75,000 people were offered jobs on Saturday itself. Prime Minister Modi hailed his tenure in bringing drastic changes in government departments.
You are watching India Today.
A very good evening and thanks so much for being with us here on India Today. I'm Chaiti Narula joining you with all the top stories, wishing all of you a very happy Diwali. And what a fantastic Diwali this has been, because we just announced how UK has got a new Prime Minister and he's of Indian origin, Rishi Sunak. We're getting you all those details in moments from now. But first up, let's begin with the headlines. Indian origin Rishi Sunak, all set to become UK Prime Minister after Penny drops out of the race. UK's youngest Prime Minister faces unprecedented economic challenge. Prime Minister Modi celebrates Diwali with security forces at Kargil and Jammu and Kashmir, boasts about India's Atmanirbhar defence system, hails Nari Shakti in the armed forces.
आज देश में अनेक सैनिक स्कूल खोले जा रहे हैं। सैनिक स्कूलों में सैन्य ट्रेनिंग संस्थानों को बेटियों के लिए खोल दिया गया है और मुझे गर्व है, मैं बहुत सारी बेटियों को मेरे साथ।
On Diwali, smog shrouds Delhi sky. Delhi AQI in very poor category. BJP slams AAP, calls Kejriwal anti-Hindu for banning crackers. Cyclone Sitrang threatens Bengal. Heavy rain alert in several coastal districts. NDRF teams on alert. Cyclone alert in neighbouring Bangladesh as well. Suicide blast angle emerges in mysterious car blast in Coimbatore. Explosives recovered from deceased driver's house. The CCTV shows suspicious men carrying sack. Salman Rushdie loses sight in one eye and an incapacitated hand in the brutal knife attack in August. And well, what a Diwali it has been for all of us. Rishi Sunak winning the race today to replace Liz Truss as Conservative Party leader and all set to become the next UK Prime Minister. And he is of Indian origin, viewers. Rishi Sunak becomes UK's first Indian origin Prime Minister after his only competition, Penny, dropped out of the race. Mordaunt did not specifically say whether she had failed to secure the required 100 nominations from Conservative MPs to run in leadership election. Before Penny dropped out, Sunak had support of over 180 lawmakers, way above the 100 mark threshold. It was only on 6th of September when Sunak lost the race to become UK's Prime Minister to Liz Truss. So September he loses, October he wins, and really nobody could have imagined this could have happened, really. Even Gilbert, who I've been speaking to, says that it's coming as a bolt from the blue. They're all caught off guard at the moment, but finally UK would see some level of a stability. Gilbert, we've been talking about this. I also want to know, I see that, there's a lot of reactions now coming in from foreign secretaries and what have you. If you could just give us what has been the unanimous consensus that is coming in from Britain as far as their new Prime Minister is concerned.
I think, look, I'm not sure I can speak for the entire population of Great Britain, but certainly from people I've been speaking to and interacting with, there's just a general sense of relief. It's been frankly, the Conservative Party has been a bit of a clown show for the last few years, which is ironic because they were traditionally regarded as the party of financial probity and moral rectitude. They're neither of those now. They absolutely set fire to the legacy that people like Margaret Thatcher and John Major set down for them over the years. It's very difficult to understand why, but I think it's probably, the corruption of power, the corruption of politics, I suppose, when it comes down to it. So what we have here is finally a stability candidate, someone who understands international markets, someone who understands money, someone who understands politics, someone who, is happily married with kids as opposed to, a string of painful, broken divorces behind him. We finally got someone who stands for what the Conservative Party sees in itself. His biggest challenge now is to try and turn the party round and persuade the electorate that they're worthy of another 5-year term, when frankly the voting public are absolutely sick to death of Tory politics.
Oh no, absolutely. And like you said, you cannot speak for everybody, but yes, the consensus that is coming in is that there is some level of stability that Britain finally has after that flip-flop.
No, absolutely. There's no question about that whatsoever. He's a very interesting character, actually, Rishi Sunak. I mean, I think it's easy to overlook the fact that, whereas, Boris Johnson was a feature of politics for many decades. I remember meeting him when I was a young journalist some 25 years ago. Rishi Sunak only entered Parliament in 2015, as a young and very, very raw and inexperienced politician.